just have to stand right here.
Eric Cartman is one of the most diabolical characters ever put on television. When analyzing Eric, there are countless episodes that reveal just how unhinged he truly is. However, there's one episode in particular that really explains why Cartman turned out this way. Arguably, the most important storyline for understanding Eric Cartman comes from the episode... A very good episode title. A lot of us remember this episode because it depicts the legendary dog whisperer, Caesar Milan. He's one of the few celebrities that South Park didn't completely destroy. In fact, Trey Parker read his book and enjoyed his show.
That's one of the few shows on television that can make me cry. Like watching people with a problem dog, and then Caesar just comes in and just kicks ass, and then all of a sudden the dog's super awesome.
Not only is this episode hilarious and peak Cartman, but it also gives us an intimate storyline that reveals the psychology behind Leanne's codependent relationship with her son. It's one of the better written episodes. I wouldn't call it underrated. It holds a 9.1 on IMDb after all. Personally, I have it in my top 10, so I figured it was finally time to break this one down. If you guys enjoy South Park content, make sure to like and subscribe. Without further ado, here is... The episode begins with Eric and his mom having a meeting with the school counselor, Mr. Mackey. Now, what could Cartman have possibly done to get in trouble this time?
I'm sorry I handcuffed Billy Turner's ankle to the school flagpole.
Apparently this is Billy Turner. He's actually only ever been seen in one episode, but they name drop him a few times throughout the show, and he even appears in some of the games. If you actually knew that, congratulations, you're a nerd. So Mackey is not content with Cartman's apology, so he tries again. This time, Eric gives a full apology on what he actually did, which was tie Billy Turner's ankle to a flagpole, handed him a hacksaw, convinced him he'd poisoned his lunch milk, and told him the only way to reach the antidote in time was to saw through his own leg. Just your average 4th grader prank.
That's very naughty, Eric.
Well, he called me chubby.
Well, that makes sense. Perfectly justified. All jokes aside, the most interesting part of this scene isn't that Cartman is role-playing a Saw movie, it's Leanne's attempt to scold him. Cartman's character has evolved a lot throughout the show, but from the very beginning, he was a spoiled brat. He's rarely faced any pushback from his mom. Leanne has described some horrifying things he's done in such a casual way.
Actually, Eric is still supposed to be grounded for trying to exterminate the Jews 2 weeks ago.
So after hearing criticism from Mr. Mackey, Leanne starts breaking down in tears. For the first time, she admits that Eric is out of control, but doesn't know how to handle him.
Well, nice going, asshole. You made my mom cry.
Cartman interprets his mom crying as being Mr. Mackey's fault. He genuinely believes Leanne is upset because of what Mackey said, which perfectly highlights his inability to reflect on himself, which is a classic narcissistic trait. Leanne tells Cartman that it's his fault she's crying. So, how does Cartman fix this?
Who's got the greatest mom in the world? I do. My mom's the best mom, better than your mom.
This shows us that Cartman is all too familiar with manipulating his mom to get out of trouble. But at least Leanne is becoming self-aware that she has a problem. Mr. Mackey tells Leanne that there's help out there for people like her who have problems disciplining their children. He asks her if she's ever heard of a show called Nanny 911.
Time to call Nanny 911.
We get introduced to the lineup of nannies, and yes, these are all based on real people, except maybe this one, who's based on a character from the film The Dark Crystal.
Todo Skeksis. All living things consume other things to survive.
I mean, you don't even need to get the reference to find this funny, the randomness does all the work. Nanny shows like this were decently popular in the late 2000s, and South Park satirizes them very accurately in this episode. Shows like Nanny 911 and Super Nanny were meant to be educational on how to effectively discipline children. But let's be real, most people just watched it for entertainment and to feel better about themselves as parents. During the intro, we learn that Cartman is going to appear on the show with Nanny Stella to set him straight.
Killer, I'm gonna be on TV now.
Nanny Stella introduces herself to Eric. Of course, Matt and Trey had to give her the classic British teeth. I've always known about this stereotype, but where did it actually come from? Get out your notes, this is your one history lesson for the video. In early 20th century America, dental work like braces and teeth bleaching became almost a requirement if you wanted to be a Hollywood actor. This caused a culture in America to strive for similar looking teeth to the people that they saw in film. By the 1950s, it was generally assumed in the US that if your teeth were crooked, you'd get braces to fix them. while in countries like the UK, braces were only recommended if the teeth were causing medical or functional issues. So it's not like oral health was significantly better in the US, it's just that we were the first to care about how our teeth looked. But the Brits eventually got their revenge by calling us a bunch of fat asses. So Nanny Stella starts by telling Eric there are going to be some rule changes. She tells him he's not allowed to play video games until he does some chores. Cartman laughs this off while mocking her British accent, so she unplugs his Xbox and tells him to follow her. She tries to get him to start by making his bed, which doesn't work very well.
This is not acceptable.
Stop trying to bogart my Xbox, you fat.
After this, she puts him into timeout. Cartman's reaction is hilarious. He doesn't even know what a timeout is. He even asks her what exactly keeps him on the chair. Clearly, Leanne has never punished him using this method.
Whoa, how did I do that?
This time, Nanny Stella tries a different approach by explaining to him why his behavior is wrong. This is a classic method they use in the actual nanny shows. They highlight the importance of not just discipline, but making the child understand why they're being punished. Something the parent is supposed to do before some random stranger. If you watch a few episodes of this show, you'll quickly learn that the problem is rarely the kids, but the lack of parenting. Cartman tells her he's just going to get down as soon as she moves, so she tells him she isn't going anywhere. He then proceeds to hawk a loogie in her mouth. Nanny Stella tries a more psychological approach, trying to find the root of Cartman's anger. She attempts a heart-to-heart with Eric, trying to reach common ground.
Because I don't understand why you became a nanny.
Me? Well, because I love children.
Eric asks her why she doesn't have any children of her own if she loves them so much. Of course, he's very calculated in his question, because he's about to give us a clinic on rage baiting.
The truth is, nobody ever wanted to have babies with you. Isn't that it?
Obviously, this is a very sensitive topic for Nanny Stella. Unfortunately, the clip is too long to show the entire thing, but he also reminds her that her uterus is slowly shriveling away. And yeah, with a few sentences, Eric Cartman psychologically breaks Nanny Stella and rage baits her into quitting the job. Leanne panics that Nanny Stella is giving up and begs her to stay because they really need the help. Fun fact, or not so fun fact, Eric's mom Leanne is actually named after an ex-girlfriend of Trey Parker's. They were high school sweethearts who actually got engaged.
Why don't you tell us about Leanne?
We were supposed to get married, and we were engaged for a year. Everything, friends had plane tickets, the dress was bought, the church was paid for, and about a month before the wedding, she decided to start sleeping with this guy in an a cappella group because he had.
Well, he was in an a cappella group,
It's hard to look at me
and in retrospect, you can say, well, shit, the guy was.
Hi, I'm worth $7 million, and she's with the manager of Foley's. Whoops.
He's actually worth over $1 billion now. I wonder what Leanne's doing these days. But yeah, that's why he picked the name for Cartman's mom, and if you remember, towards the beginning of the show, it was heavily emphasized that Cartman's mom was a very promiscuous lady, to say the least. So after Nanny Stella fails her mission, they decide to try another nanny. This time, from Super Nanny. They are always so on point with the outfits whenever they depict someone. Nanny Joe claims that in 3 days' time, the world is going to see a new Eric Cartman.
I'm afraid Super Nanny is in a deep state of mental psychosis. I mean, she spends most of her time sobbing and eating her own excrement.
I'm not entirely sure where YouTube's TOS stands on showing an animated clip of someone eating their own feces, so I'm gonna play it safe. But yeah, the fact Cartman traumatized her so much she ended up in this state is something only Trey Parker could come up with. I tried to find out if any of the nannies depicted on this episode ever commented on it, but it looks like they didn't. The last thing I'll say about these shows is that they're reality TV. The parents get paid, a lot of it is scripted, and they edit things to make them look as dramatic as possible. I doubt anyone watching this has actually been a part of one of these shows or even knows someone that was, but in the off chance that you have, I am begging you to tell us your story in the comments. Alright, we're finally getting to the beef of this episode. Leanne tells the doctor that she has run out of nanny shows who are willing to help Cartman. The doctor tells her there is still one show that they could try.
I rehabilitate dogs. I train people. I am the dog wheesperer.
Caesar enters the house and asks Leanne what kind of problem she has with her son. Right away, Cartman gets annoyed that they're talking about him when he's standing right there, so he tries to rage bait Caesar.
Yeah, well, I don't see why. Hey!
He claims that this tactic is not validating his behavior with either negative or positive response, but it lets the dog know he is the dominant one. He then suggests they take Cartman out for a walk. This is something Caesar says is very accurate to his show. When a dog with behavioral issues first meets a human, its excitement level is through the roof. So the best thing you can do before correcting anything is let it burn off that energy first. During the walk, Cartman starts tweaking out and pleading with his mom for this to stop. Caesar assures her that he will run out of energy soon and tells her to try walking him herself.
Can't you see I'm unhappy right now? Man!
So how did Trey Parker even come up with this insane idea for an episode?
But there was plenty of times when I'd be watching the show, I'd be watching Dog Whisperer and saying, wow, I bet that would probably work on Cartman, what he's doing. And so that became the basis for the show.
Caesar explains the importance of asserting your dominance of the house as pack leader. Throughout this episode, it's honestly just insane how all of these examples using dogs can easily apply to parenting as well. This is the first time in Cartman's life where his mom is not giving him the attention he wants. Leanne is making good progress, but she acknowledges she's not as good as Caesar, so they try a new exercise. Caesar brings out a bucket of KFC to enjoy with Leanne. As we know, for Cartman, KFC is basically his version of crack cocaine. And we're not forgetting the most unforgivable thing he's ever done. So yeah, he simply can't bear watching people eat it in front of him. He makes a half-assed attempt to be polite, but Caesar acknowledges that he's lying.
Suck my asshole, Taco Bender!
This is my favorite Cartman frame of all time, by the way. This is too much for Eric, so he decides to run away from home, which worries Leanne, but Caesar assures her that he will be back. He goes to see his friends, looking for a place to live. They'll surely have his back, right?
Can't stay here. You're not staying at my house either. No, my parents won't let me bring homeless people home anymore.
With friends like this, who needs enemies? Just kidding, we all know Cartman deserved that. By this point in the show, he's already attempted to kill Kyle, abused Butters multiple times, pressured Stan to drive a boat that almost wiped out the town. I could go on, but I think we get it. His attempt at guilting them doesn't work either.
I'll just go sleep on the street somewhere. Probably get mugged and gang raped by some minorities.
Cartman decides that when in doubt, his best friend Jimmy will have his back.
What's my last name? God damn it.
Well, that's okay, because he still has his good friend Craig.
But I hate you.
So Cartman folds and decides to go back home, hoping that his mom will see things differently now. He's annoyed to see that Caesar is still there and complains that he's hungry.
Skin this chicken, boiled vegetables, and salad? This is just like Auschwitz!
Well, Eric Cartman is a lot of things. Narcissistic, objectively evil, bigoted, but hey, at least he's not a Holocaust denier, right? After realizing his dessert is a bite-sized Snickers, he decides to call CPS on his mom. A very warranted reaction in my opinion. This is where Leanne officially becomes the dominant one in the household by using her newfound technique. Cartman walks in the room like a submissive dog and gets rewarded for his change in attitude. Of course, it's not real yet because Eric Cartman won't go down that easily. He comes up with a plan to fix things once and for all. The next scene shows Leanne and Caesar having lunch together. He asks for an update on Eric and Leanne tells him that it's going great. His grades are improving and he's even started to lose some weight.
Good, Miss Cartman. Sounds like you're treating your son like a son and not like a friend.
This simple line from Caesar perfectly describes Leanne's relationship with Eric. Leanne has always used Cartman as a replacement for a friend or even an emotional partner. We know she's hooked up with over half the town, but how many people does she actually have in her life for emotional support? She's probably very lonely, and this is why I believe she has a sort of codependent relationship with Eric. She struggles to punish him because she treats him like a friend, and Eric has taken full advantage of this throughout his life. Here's what Trey Parker had to say about parents like Leanne.
Especially out here in LA, we come across so many parents that they want their kids to be their best friends. You know, they grew up with parents that were like, you know, we're friends. We're not, you know, I'm not an authority figure over you. I want to listen to you and be your friend. And it's just like that always makes for basically an Eric Cartman in one way or the other.
At the end of the scene, we see that Leanne might be feeling some affection towards Caesar. Meanwhile, Cartman attempts to recruit his friends to help with his plan, which is to kill his own mother. Stan notices that Cartman has lost weight.
I've lost almost 10 pounds now. I totally know how it felt to be a Jew in the Holocaust now.
Aside from that joke being hilarious, I also find it funny how angry Cartman is that he's losing weight. You would think after being made fun of your entire life for being fat, you might see this as a good thing. Nope, not Eric Cartman.
Dude, don't kill your mom. That's not cool. She's Hitler. Would you have killed Hitler if you had the chance?
They reuse this joke in Make Love Not Warcraft with slightly different wording, but yeah, in this episode, Cartman seems to have a fixation with comparing his situation to Nazi Germany. He's basically your modern day Redditor in this episode. So Cartman's brilliant plan is to head over to Perkins as an alibi while his friends murder his mother. Can we just take a second to appreciate the frame token part?
Dude, we're not killing your mom. Well, I can't kill her. I'm too obvious a suspect.
Eventually, he realizes his friends are not going to help him out. The funniest part of this scene is how shocked he is, like he can't fathom that his friends won't help him do this. So Cartman is forced to carry out the plan on his own. He tries to talk himself up so he can go through with it, but we clearly see him hesitating. Cartman's conscience is battling itself. Cartman's psychology is a hot topic within the South Park community. A lot of people try to label him as a psychopath, but this episode is some of the best proof that he's not. Sure, he has some traits of psychopathy, but he's shown to have very real feelings and emotional attachments that are pretty much unheard of for a true psychopath. Although he has a toxic, codependent relationship with his mom, and yeah, he uses her for personal gain, deep down, I really believe there's love in there. If you really wanted to diagnose him, it would be more accurate to say that he has narcissistic personality disorder, and like Trey Parker says, it all goes back to his mom.
Why is Cartman the way he is? And it's like, it's that simple answer of he's got a mom who wants him to be his best friend and won't smack him around.
So yeah, this scene shows us that he's battling himself internally. Also, this is a reference to the movie Contact. Well, at least the visual from it. The effects look identical. So Cartman has an epiphany and starts to realize that the world doesn't revolve around him. He soon vomits out black fluid, which could symbolize the evil within him, and he fights his two sides until he eventually passes out. Back-to-back movie references is crazy. This scene is a reference to Altered States. The next morning, Leanne comes down to find Cartman a completely different person. He's made his own breakfast, he's studying before school, it appears his good conscience has won the battle. Caesar comes over to do his last checkup. Leanne seems genuinely happy to tell him about this breakthrough. It appears to her that Eric is finally accepting things and not just pretending anymore.
I've lost a best friend, but I've gained a son.
Caesar is happy for her and tells her that when he gets older, she can become his friend again too. Leanne then invites Caesar to see an opera with her. Caesar rejects her and tells her that his work here is done. Leanne, of course, is very sad about this because she thought they were becoming friends, but Caesar lets her know that she's just a client to him. Leanne is suddenly confronted with a depressing reality. She hopes Caesar could replace Cartman emotionally. Now she feels even more alone than before. So she invites Eric to go instead, but he turns her down to do schoolwork. She tells him that they can go to KFC afterwards, and she'll even buy him a Mega Ranger if he goes.
Could I perhaps have 2 Mega Rangers?
So yeah, a really good episode with one of the most depressing endings ever. Leanne isn't able to treat Cartman the way a parent should. She's dependent on him emotionally, and it's very tragic because we know this wasn't a learning experience, especially for Cartman. Now I want to make it clear, yes, I'm aware Leanne does start acting more like a parent in the later seasons. The best example of this is during the Human Centipede episode.
If you're really sorry, then you'll understand why you aren't getting anything.
But the point of this episode really is, how does someone turn out like Eric Cartman? This was the first episode that really explains why Cartman acts the way he does. He doesn't have a father figure, his mother sees him as an emotional partner. It's just tragic, hilarious, peak South Park. I was really planning to go more in depth in regards to Caesar and talking about the tactics he uses on dogs in comparison to Cartman, but I remembered he's reacted to this episode on YouTube. I'm pretty sure most people who are watching this have seen his video, considering it's the most viewed reaction to a South Park episode ever. I'll link it in the description in the off chance you haven't seen it. I didn't want to just copy everything he said about dogs in my video, so definitely go check that out. One thing I will say about the Dog Whisperer show that, yes, it's also reality TV, just as much as a show like Nanny 911 or Super Nanny. A lot of the conversations are scripted, but considering they're using dogs, it's a little bit more respectable in my opinion. You can actually see a difference in their behavior, which is really cool. It's not like you can script a problem dog suddenly becoming well-behaved. Apparently some animal rights groups have some qualms with Caesar and the way he does things, but I don't know, you guys can let me know your opinions on that. If you guys have any recommendations for other South Park episodes you want me to break down, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you watched up to this point, make sure to like and subscribe, it really does help out. As always, thank you for watching.